Namaste. I'm Dr. V.K. Tiwari, Dr. Vinod Kumar Tiwari. I'm here with my presentation titled Global Impact of Vedic Wisdom. Global Impact of Vedic Wisdom. India is the spiritual forefather of the world today, says Professor Frederick Max Muller at Trafalgar Square in London. It's a sin to enslave the land that has given Rama and Krishna to the humanity. Swami Vivekananda says that the world immensely owes to our motherland. The comparative study says that there is no race on this earth to which the world owes so much as to our humble and the noble Hindus. Mark Twain says, in the realm of spiritualism, all the countries are the paupers. India is the only millionaire. It's the cradle of the human race, the birthplace of the human speech, the mother of the history, the grandmother of the legend and the tradition. Our most valuable material of the human history are treasured up in the Vedas only. Schopenhauer says Vedas are the most rewarding and the most elevating book which can be possible in the world. Sanskrit, aptly called the Dev Bani, the language of the deities, is the first language of the globe, ornamented with its rich vocabulary and the most scientific grammar. Sanskrit is the language of the Vedas and the Upanishads. Sanskrit is the language of Ramayana and Mahabharata. This is the language wherein Kalidas wrote Raghuvansam and Bharat Muni Natya Shastra. Sanskrit is the language of mathematics. Sanskrit is the language of astronomy. Sanskrit is the language of medical science. William Jones says. Sanskrit is the most perfect language of the world, more perfect than the Greek and the richer than the Latin. The impact of Vedic wisdom in our culture may be felt across the globe. Let's begin from the east and move towards the west. The impact of Indian culture may be viewed in Indonesia. Ramayana and Mahabharata are beautifully carved on the rock walls of Prambanan and Pentaran temple compound. Maharshi Agastya is said to have spread Vedic ethos in Java, Sumatra, Bali and Cambodia islands. Angkor Wat and Borobudur temple compound are the wonders of the world today. Ramayana is the national epic and Ramayana festival and the Ram Leelas are organized by the government of Indonesia. Dr. Harbans Lal Oberoi, the eminent scholar of Indic studies, says that the father of Sukarno, the first president of Indonesia, was a good scholar of Mahabharata. Karna was his most favorite character, but it troubled him when he thought that the Karna favored Duryodhana and fought against the virtuous Pandavas. So he named his child Sukarno, that means the virtuous Karna. Following this trend, Sukarno kept purely Sanskrit names to his children, as for example, Meghavati Sukarno Putri, Rachmavati Sukarno Putri, Sukmavati Sukarno Putri, Guru Sukarno Putra, etc. Dr. Raghubir has been the celebrated authority of Indian studies, Indic studies, pursuing his research to study the global impact of Vedic wisdom. He found people reciting Gayatri Mantra in Manchuria. He was surprised to view people talking on Gaudapada's Shankhakarika in Mongolia, Tibet and China, Korea and Japan, Burma and Sri Lanka. Taking the Charan Dhuli of Gautam Buddha are actually the devotee of Indian Vedic ethos. The Vedic imprint in Kabul and Gandhar may easily be traced. Kabul river Kubba is referred in the Vedas. Panini, the great grammarian, comes from the land, and Avesta, the ancient language of Iran, is enriched with Sanskrit words. Gandhari, the Rajmata of Kauravas in Mahabharata, was princess of Gandhar. A wall inscription in the Lakshmi Narayan Birla Mandir premises in New Delhi draws the attention of the scholars. It's an Arabic stanza and as an extract from a very classic work written by the Chacha of Prophet Muhammad. He says he prays for at least one day stay in the holy land of Hindustan as it yields liberation from the bondage of life and death. It shows that the very ethos of pre-Islamic Arab is not different from that of Hindus and Buddhist ethos that prevailed in the entire East and the West Asia at that time. Russian language enriched with Sanskrit tatsam words prove that the land was not without the Vedic imprint. Sylvia Levy aptly says, from Persia to Chinese seas, from the icy regions of Siberia to the islands of Java, Sumatra, Borneo, India has propagated her beliefs, her tales. Yoga and Ayurveda, civilization and her culture, she has right to reclaim her place amongst the great nations, summarizing and symbolizing the spirit of humanity. In this way, India has left indelible imprint on 1/4 of the human race in the course of long succession of centuries. Professor Chaman Lal, in his book The Hindu America, writes that 1000 years before Columbus discovered America, there was Vedic Brahmanical empire. Through a film based on the ancient temple architecture scattered from South to North America, he revealed the fact to the world today. He writes that while his return, an honorable justice who came to the airport to see him off inquired him, when shall you take us back in the Hinduism? The impact of Vedas and Vedanta may aptly be viewed in the modern America. Thoreau and Emerson are the intellectual pioneers of American society. Henry David Thoreau felt fascinated with the Vedic wisdom. Let's view his impression. Whenever I read any part of Vedas, I feel some heavenly light illuminating me. The great teachings of the Vedas are for all the ages, climes, and nationalities. It's the royal road that leads to the great wisdom. Thoreau was a great devotee of Bhagavad Gita. He says, in the morning, I bred my intellect into the cosmogonal philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Ralph Waldo Emerson is credited to have inspired Thoreau to study Vedic wisdom. He is aptly called the champion of the Hindu thoughts in America. In his Brahma and the other works of poetry, he gives an expression of the Vedic and the Upanishadic thought. Romarola writes that before the advent of Swami Vivekananda in America, Emerson played a significant role in preparing American mind to listen and grasp Vedanta philosophy. And when Swami Vivekananda addressed sisters and brothers of America in the World Parliament of Religion held in Chicago, USA, the entire American intelligentsia was thrilled, enlightened, and exhilarated. Miss Josephine McLeod says, if the living God, the Christ, has ever walked in America, it's Swami Vivekananda. On Jesus Christ himself, Nicholas Notovich, the Russian scholar, after a thorough investigation, concludes that Jesus visited India, stayed in the Gurukulas, and learned Hindu metaphysics. This is why we find impact of Buddhism on Christianity. To quote Maithili Sharana Gupta, था हिंदुओं का शिष्य ईशा, यह पता भी है चला, ईसाइयों का धर्म भी है बौद्ध ढांचे में ढला. The arrival of Europe in India is an epoch-making phenomenon in the history of the world. It left an indelible imprint of Upanishadic impact on the European mind. It opened a new horizon to view India, to study and understand her ethos, and to realize the fact that India is the greatest nation of the world, its civilization is the oldest one, and its literature and philosophy and its contribution to humanity is beyond comparison. It happened that a French scholar named Anquetil Duprat visited India in 1760. When he returned, he carried with himself 80 manuscripts of Vedic scriptures that included Persian translation of Upanishads of Dara Shikoh, the eldest son of Shahjahan. Duprat published Latin translation of Upanishads in 2 volumes. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer happened to get a copy of this translation and was exhilarated. To quote his words, "There is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of Upanishads are. They are the solace of my life and will be a solace of my death." The study of Upanishads brought an intellectual renaissance in the entire Europe. Immanuel Kant, who is credited to have brought reconciliation between the 2 opposite schools of Western philosophy, observes, "The French translation of Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita that I studied kept me charmed throughout my life." John Fichte and Paul Dussin acknowledged Vedanta as the best philosophy of the world. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche studied Manusmriti and described it many times greater than that of Holy Bible, a work which is spiritual and superior beyond comparison, and which even to name in one breath with the Bible would be a sin against the Holy Ghost, he says. Romeo Rolla, the great French pacifist who wrote biography of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Swami Vivekananda and Mahatma Gandhi, was moved with the noble ethos of Vedic literature. To quote his words, "I have studied all religions of Europe and Asia. Hinduism appears to be best of all. I have a strong conviction that one day the whole world would have to bow before this Hindu Dharma." Charles Wilkins translated Bhagavad Gita with the title The Dialogues of Krishna and Arjuna in very preface of the book. Sir Warren Hastings, Governor General of British government, writes, "Even thousands of years after the collapse of British rule in India, the flag of Bhagavad Gita will keep unfurling into the firmament." Warren Hastings was so deeply impressed with the sermons of Bhagavad Gita that he distributed thousands of its copies throughout Europe and America. William Jones, who is credited to have translating Vigyan Shakuntalam into English, wrote hymns to Narayana and translated Manusmriti with the title Human Theology. He advocated that Gothic, Celtic and the Sanskrit are the members of same language family. Ramdhari Dinkar writes, "The edifice of modern comparative linguistics built by Lord Bope, Max Muller, Grimm, the foundation of which are laid by William Jones only. Before cultural interaction with India, no one in Europe was aware of linguistics. After having acquaintance with Indian Nirukta and Vyakarana, European could write on linguistics. Henry Thomas Colebrook deeply studied Hindu theology, Dharma, Darshan, Vyakaran, Jyotish, and published comparative study of Vedas. Alexander Hamilton, Chazy, Eugen Burnouf, and Schlegel brothers launched Sanskrit teaching campaign in France, Germany, and England. In the hierarchy of French scholars of Sanskrit, Eugen Burnouf is a celebrated name. The Credit goes to him that he taught Sanskrit to Professor Frederick Max Muller and urged him to work on the profound study and research of the Vedas. The greatness of Max Muller lies that he spent 30 precious years of his life on Vedic studies, and when his great commentary on the Vedas appeared, the entire Western intelligentsia was enlightened. It was the climax of the Vedic Renaissance in Europe. It was the Digvijay of Vedic wisdom in the West. Professor Frederick Max Muller was a great devotee of Vedic wisdom. Born away from India, he was a noble rishi who greatly served India. Ramdhari Singh Dinkar writes that the very soul of Maharshi Sayan incarnated at Max Muller in Germany. He has been one of the greatest commentator of Vedas of our age. The most important contribution of Professor Max Muller set up a trend to study comparative linguistics and comparative religions. The fact that came from the study of comparative linguistics destroyed the European dogmas that there is no land more ancient than the Philistine and Greece, and there is no language more ancient than that of Hebrew. According to Bible, this creation is not more than 4,000 years old. The biblical establishment posed a hindrance before the European scholars in determining the age of the Vedas. They were not ready to expand this span beyond 2000 years BC. But in the 20th century, the fact that came from the excavation of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa demolished the European dogma, and even the sectarian scholars were bound to acknowledge that this creation must be more than 4,000 years old. Professor Max Muller established the fact that it's not Hebrew, but the Sanskrit is the most ancient language, and it's not the Greek, but the Greek and the Jews, but the Hindus who are the most ancient race of the world. Max Muller declared Panini as the greatest authority on grammar. Maithili Saran Gupta writes beautifully in his Bharat Bharati. निकला जहां से आधुनिक वह भिन्न भाषा तत्व है, रखती न भाषा एक भी संस्कृत समान महत्व है, पाणिनि सदृश वैयाकरण संसार भर में कौन है, इस प्रश्न का सर्वत्र उत्तर उत्तरोत्तर मौन है. Max Muller glorified India in many ways. In more than 50 of his volumes, we have an excellent interpretation of our literature, philosophy, and scriptures. In his book, India, What Can It Teach Us? He advocates what the world has to learn from India. Wilhelm Friedrich Schlegel was an authority of Indo-European studies and comparative linguistics. He scientifically explained how the Sanskrit sounds undergo change into the European languages and led to the formation of Grimm's law that we teach in the universities today. Here it deserves to be mentioned that Friedrich Schlegel was the mentor of William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the legendary romantic poets. This is why we find Indian impact in their works. August Wilhelm Schlegel, the elder brother, was the first professor of Sanskrit in Europe. He had a deep insight into our literature and translated Bhagavad Gita into German poetry. Sir Edwin Arnold has been an eminent Indologist of our time. He was worried to think that there is no work like Bhagavad Gita in English literature. So he himself translated Bhagavad Gita into English with the title, The Song Celestial. Mahatma Gandhi was moved to read this book. In his memoir, he writes, "It opened me a new view of life. I had found at last, I believed, the light I needed." W.B. Yeats and T.S. Eliot are the celebrated poets of modern English literature. W.B. Yeats, William Butler Yeats, translated 10 of Upanishads in English language, and T.S. Eliot, Thomas Stern Eliot, wrote Sanskritized English. Let's see how beautifully he sums up his work, The Westland, with Buddhist symbology and Vedic Shanti mantra. Da, 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 datta, dayadvam, damyat, shanti, shanti, shanti. Very few people are aware of the Vedic contribution to the modern science. Modern Europe, up to the 16th century, as taught by the Roman Catholic Church, believed that the earth is flat and it's the center of this universe. Galileo was bitterly tortured and imprisoned when he proclaimed that the earth is round and rotates around the sun. Contrary to this, Bhaskaracharya in India, centuries before, explained that there are millions of stars in this universe, and sun, one of the star, is the pivot of our solar system, and our earth revolves around the sun. तथा वेदांग शास्त्राणाम गणितम मूर्धन्यम संस्थिताम. Bhaskaracharya says to Leelavati, his daughter, mathematics is the core of all the sciences. India taught mathematics to the world, the counting of the numbers, the zero, the decimal, the addition, the subtraction, the multiplication, the division, the percentage, square root, the value of pi, the geometry, the trigonometry, Pythagoras prameya, the Pythagoras theorem, etc. All are the contribution of Vedic mathematics to the world. I would like to quote a stanza from a beautiful song that appears in a very famous film, Purab or Paschim. जब जीरो दिया मेरे भारत ने, जब जीरो दिया मेरे भारत ने मेरे भारत ने, दुनिया को तब गिनती आई, तारों की भाषा भारत ने दुनिया को पहले सिखलाई. देता न दशमलव भारत तो यूं चांद पे जाना मुश्किल था, धरती और चांद की दूरी का अंदाजा लगाना मुश्किल था. सभ्यता जहां पहले आई, पहले जन्मी है जहां पे कला, अपना भारत वो भारत है जिसके पीछे संसार चला और आगे बढ़ा बढ़ता ही गया. भगवान करे यह और बढ़े, बढ़ता ही रहे और फूले फले, जब जीरो दिया मेरे भारत ने. That the Vedic contribution to the mathematics has aptly been acknowledged by the eminent geniuses of the world today. To quote Albert Einstein, we owe a lot to India, who taught us how to count, without which no scientific discovery would have been made. Lancelot Ogden, the great mathematician of our age, expresses the same views. There may not be more revolutionary contribution than that of the one which the Hindus means Indians, made when they invented zero. The Vedic contribution to astronomy has been beyond comparison. The calculation of the solar and the lunar eclipses are correct up to the second. Kumbh Mela in Sanatan Hindu Dharma is a purely astronomical phenomenon. The congregation of Kumbh Mela is proportionate to the rotation of Brihaspati, Jupiter, in its solar orbit. That completes its one cycle in 12 years. When Jupiter arrives in Taurus and Sun in Capricorn, then the Kumbh is held at Prayagraj. Jupiter comes back into Taurus again after 12 years. Consequently, Kumbh Mela will be held in Prayagraj again after 12 years. Likewise, when Jupiter arrives in Leo and Sun also moves into Leo, the Kumbh is held at Nasik. This will repeat again after 12 years as explained above. Similarly, Jupiter stays in Leo and Sun moves into Aries. Kumbh is held at Ujjain. Likewise, when Jupiter moves into Aquarius and the Sun moves to Aries, Kumbh is held at Haridwar. Here it deserves to be mentioned that Kumbh, the Amrit Kalash, a pot or pitcher of nectar in Indian astronomy, is converted into zodiac Aquarius in Greek myths that connotates for the story of creation there. Indian Panchang, our calendar system, is the most perfect and scientific so far as naming of the days of the week and the months in the year and calculation of the timeline, the beginning of the new Samvatsar, etc. are concerned. Contrary to this, prevailing Gregorian calendar makes a mockery of itself. Very few people know that there were only 10 months in the year beginning from March. This is why September, October, November and December, as the name suggests, were the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th months respectively. When it was realized that it is a folly in itself, then the January and February were later inserted at the end of the year. January and February became the first and the second month of the year, but it made the entire nomenclature of the Gregorian calendar the misnomer one, and September, October, November and December became the 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th months respectively. In this context, it also deserves to be mentioned that quintiles and sextiles, meaning 7th and 8th months, were replaced by July and August, named after Julius Caesar and his successor August Caesar respectively. Further, it also needs to be referred that there were only 6 days in a week, and that hardly makes a month in the 4 weeks, and there were only 10 months in their years, with one non-month of 64 days called winter period. This concept of non-month still exists in the year because February is a short non-month having only 28 days and 29 days when it's leap year after every 4 years. This is why Emmeline Plunkett warmly appreciates the Vedic contribution to the astronomy. She says, there were very advanced Hindu astronomers in 6000 BC. Vedas contain an account of the dimension of Earth, Sun, Moon and planets and galaxies. Yoga and Ayurveda have saved humanity for centuries. Charaka and Sushruta have talked about thousands of diseases and have suggested their therapeutic cures. Orthopedics and plastic surgery are our contribution. Sir W. Hunter, a British surgeon, says the surgery of ancient Indian physician was bold and skillful. A special branch of surgery was dedicated to rhinoplasty, or the operation for improving deformed ears, noses and forming new ones, which European surgeons have now borrowed from us, means Indians. P. Johnston once again says, they means Hindus, were aware of the system of blood circulation centuries before Harvey was heard of. Our expert physicians were so popular in many countries of the Middle East that they were warmly called and kept in the court there. Maithili Saran Gupta writes in his Bharat Bharti, थे हार जाते अन्य देशी वैद्यवर जिस रोग से, हम भस्म करते थे उन्हें बस भस्म के ही जोर से, थे दूर देशों के नृपति हमको बुलाकर जानते, इतिहास साक्षी है हमें सब थे जगत गुरु मानते. Bhaskaracharya says to Lilavati that the water bodies lie on the earth due to its gravitational force. To quote Johnston again, gravitation was known to Hindus. Hindus means Indian before the birth of Newton. It's the unique feature of Vedic wisdom that the literature and the mathematics, philosophy and the science seem to have intermingled. This is because the metaphors used to explain the subtleties are from the practical life and help the scholars to comprehend the subject. This is also true in other way round. The study of Indian philosophy helped the scientist W. Heisenberg, the German physicist, to grasp quantum physics. To quote his words. After the study of Indian philosophy, some of the ideas of quantum physics that seemed so crazy suddenly came to my sense. This is our privilege to say that the world today, the East and the West, realizes that the Vedic wisdom is in Vedic wisdom is entirely in coherence with the modern science. Sir John Woodruff says exactly. An examination of Indian Vedic doctrines shows that it is in tune with the most advanced scientific and philosophical thought of the West. The impact of Vedic wisdom on the world today is of many fold. There is no dimension of life where India has not contributed. William Durant, an American historian, aptly says, India is the mother of our race. Sanskrit, the mother of all the European languages. She is the mother of our philosophy, mother of our mathematics. Through Buddha, the mother of ideals embodied in Christianity, through the village community, mother of the self-government and democracy. Mother India, in many ways, is really the mother of us all. I would like to conclude my lecture with a couple of stanza of Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee on Vedic contribution to the world today. जग को कलश अमृत का देकर हमने विष का पान किया था। जग को कलश अमृत का देकर हमने विष का पान किया था और मानवता के लिए हर्ष से अस्थि वज्र का दान दिया था। जब पश्चिम ने वनफल खाकर छाल पहनकर लाज बचाई, तब भारत से सामगान का स्वर्णिम स्वर था दिया सुनाई। जब पश्चिम ने वनफल खाकर छाल पहनकर लाज बचाई, तब भारत से सामगान का स्वर्णिम स्वर था दिया सुनाई। अज्ञानी मानव को हमने दिव्य ज्ञान का दान दिया था। अंबर के लालाट को चुमा, अतल सिंधु को छान लिया था। विश्व गगन में वैदिक गौरव के दीपक अब भी जलते हैं। विश्व गगन में वैदिक गौरव के दीपक अब भी जलते हैं। कोटि कोटि नयनों में स्वर्णिम युग के सत सपने पलते हैं। कोटि कोटि नयनों में स्वर्णिम युग के सत सपने पलते हैं। आवो युग के सपनों को साकार करें हम। आवो युग के सपनों को साकार करें हम। मृतकों में नवजीवन की हुंकार भरें। मृतकों में नवजीवन की हुंकार भरें। Many thanks to you. Namaste to you all.